Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Petty revenge is the best revenge. Well done, OP. You deserve a cookie for that one. Awesome move and a great comeuppance for Karen. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with a turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. I got back at the rude Karen in my line. I was a grocery checker in the 90s. One day around noon, I was working the 10 items or less cash-only express line that was used by many people who were just grabbing a quick sandwich for lunch, so it was important to keep out people who had carts full of groceries. There was one other regular check stand open across from me that had one person being checked out with a large cart full. I didn't have anyone in my line at the time. Karen pulls up to the other check stand with a heaping cart and notices me standing there. She asks if I can check her out. I tell her, no, I'm sorry. I have to be available for people grabbing lunch. Over the next 30 seconds, she stared at me, then put her cart up to my check stand and started putting all her things on my check stand and says, "You're not doing anything. You can check me out." So I was kind of stuck, so I tried to check her out as fast as I could and didn't say much. And wouldn't you know it, pretty soon I had a line of about 5 people standing there with their sandwiches and Cokes glaring at me. Remember, it was a cash lane, so as I'm finishing her order, Karen takes out her checkbook and writes a check. Mind you, she didn't start writing it until I was about done. More delay. This was her big mistake. Her address was on the check, so on my lunch break, I got the subscription cards from all the magazines and proceeded to subscribe her to just about every magazine we carried. And I always checked the 2 years bill me later option. I even signed her up for the Columbia Music Club, and I picked the very worst records. Weeks later, when she started getting all the magazines and bills for them, there's no way she would connect it to the checker she was rude to. I was probably one in a long string of cashiers she was rude to. Winner, me. And our second story. Want me to talk to your other clients? Will do. A tiny bit of background. My family recently moved into a new neighborhood that we chose because we love the neighbors. When we were touring the house, C came over and told us he'd mow our lawn for us. J told us all about the kids who our kid would make friends with, and X invited us over for a cookout. We try to be good neighbors too. Our front yard is where the neighbor kids know they can come play in the shade with our dog and our kid. We installed a small but growing garden as an excuse to be outside and chat with our neighbors. I'm about halfway through baking brownies for everyone in our little cul-de-sac as a thank you for the warm welcome we've received. This neighborhood's a place where folks look out for each other, in part because most of us know we're the people who keep us safe. Story time. The other day I was sitting outside watching my kid play with his best friend on our block and friend's older brother. Older brother was asking me about our garden as an excuse to tell me about what he was learning about pollinators. My kid makes a break for the street, so I run after him and pick him up. No cars ever go by, but we try to teach him road safety early. As I'm carrying him back to the house, older brother's still talking to me when he's interrupted by someone with a branded shirt and a clipboard. I immediately tell the shirt that I'm not interested in buying anything, to which he replies that he's not trying to sell me anything. He launches into his apparently non-sales pitch for the home security system he sells and tells me all the details for the video doorbell that several of my neighbors have been installing. Now, in case you didn't know, big security systems like Amazon, Ring, and ADT regularly hand over all the video footage to the police without requiring any sort of warrant from them. That's not to mention that several groups have been discovered listening into your conversations in the name of transcribing them. I ask him how his company avoids compromising my data, a question he dodges by scrunching up his face and moving on with his pitch. When I press him on it, he lies to me based on what I already know about his company that uses orange signs. He then tells me that C, J, and X sent him over here because they said I was nice, implying that because I won't accept his lie, somehow I'm the jerk here. After interrupting the conversation with the neighbor kid as I'm holding a baby I'm obviously trying to take inside, lying to me, and now trying to guilt me into a system I don't want and believe is bad for my community, we reach an impasse. He falls back to say, well, C, J, and X have had it installed. Talk to them. Cue malicious compliance. I proceed to go over to C, J, X, and one other neighbor, also C, he sells the product to by the end of the day, and have a normal, friendly chat with them. I slide into the conversation that I don't care for that company because of the way they hand over data to the cops and can listen in at any time. Fast forward to today, when every neighbor except also C has taken down their orange sign and had the system uninstalled. I think also C never had it installed, but is keeping the sign up just as a potential deterrent. So if you're reading Shirt, if you'd just been honest with me, I wouldn't have felt the need to quite so aggressively share my concerns. You would have just lost out on one sale rather than the whole neighborhood. And our next story. Customer won't let bully take all the clearance meat. I've worked in the meat department at grocery stores for over 15 years. Many years ago, at one of the stores, we had a policy that around 1 or 2 p.m., we'd go through the sales case and grab any meat that was expiring the next day and mark them all down to around $1. There was one regular customer we had that our clerk called the meat bully. He was an older gentleman who would arrive in the early afternoon and watch us like a vulture until we brought the reduced product to our clearance section and then fill his shopping cart with almost everything. For some reason, he never grabbed any lamb or veal. We had a number of complaints from other customers about how there was nothing left in our reduced section, but also because Meat Bully would push others out of his way to get his precious cheap meat. There was another regular customer, farm woman, an older woman who lived on a farm, who one day decided to do something about our clearance problem. As I was putting reduced prices on the product, I noticed both Meat Bully and farm woman waiting and watching me, and giving each other the stink eye. Once I was done, I brought the rack out and put the cheap meat into the sales case as fast as I could. When it was all out and backed away, the two of them went right at it, pushing and shoving each other, grabbing whatever meat they could and tossing it into their carts. After a minute or two, the clearance section was wiped out and they walked away to continue their shopping. Over an hour later, farm woman came back and put most of what she grabbed back into the clearance display. I came up to her and asked, "Is there anything wrong with this? Did you change your mind?" She smiled at me and answered, "Oh no, there's nothing wrong. I just didn't want Meat Bully to take all your cheap stuff. This way everyone else has a chance to buy some." I sighed for a moment and smiled. "I appreciate the thought, ma'am," but then grabbed a couple of packages she'd put back. As I suspected, they were room temperature. I continued, "But we can't sell meat that's been unrefrigerated this long. Unfortunately, we'll have to throw this all out." "Oh, I'm sorry," she muttered, frowning as she realized that her good deed had been for nothing, walking away glumly. Thankfully, farm woman never tried that again. A few weeks later, the company would change our clearance policy to where we didn't reduce the prices so drastically, and though Meat Bully continued shopping there, he wasn't nearly as aggressive. I feel for Farm Lady. She was trying to do a good deed, and I appreciate people like her. And our last story. EM gets mad when I tell her that she can't walk her daughter at a private property. My 22-year-old female cousin, 22-year-old female, and her family have a beautiful property. Her mom would babysit me during the summer, so I basically grew up there. There are 3 houses with all of her dad's close family living there, which surrounds a big pond. There's a small boat dock, a tennis court, and a pavilion. It's surrounded by forest except for the entrance. It's a totally private property, which means that they have big signs at the front of the entrance that say "No Trespassing." There's also another street sign halfway down the road that says "No Trespassing." Her and her family get really annoyed when random people come walking down their property and just ignore the signs. To get to the property, you have to go down a sort of long road that goes past a few buildings. When you first turn into the road, there's a Wawa. Americans who live in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, or Virginia, let me know if you know what that is. It's a deli shop/convenience store that has amazing food and coffee, a small strip mall, and an apartment complex. I lived in that complex for about a year, which is when this took place. Sorry about the long description, I just hope that this will give you a good enough picture of the area. Now on to the story. When I moved into that apartment complex, I asked my cousin if I could walk my dog around her property. She, of course, gave me permission. One day after I was done walking my dog around the pond, I was leaving through the front gates, which again had the "No Trespassing" signs. I saw this random woman walking with her young daughter down towards the entrance, who I've never seen before. I politely pointed at the big sign and said, "Sorry, it says no trespassing." Then she told me she knew the family who lived there. I replied, "No, you're not. I'm related to them and they gave me permission to go down there." She said, "Well, my daughter wants to go down there. Are you saying that she can't explore?" I replied, "If it means that you're trespassing, then yes. I'm saying that you and your daughter can't go exploring there." She finally gave out a big, annoyed huff and turned to her daughter and said in a very rude tone, "Sorry, honey, this lady won't let us go down there." And they finally turned around and started walking back. I felt like it would be awkward if I started to walk behind them back to my apartment, so I turned around and just walked my dog around the pond one more time and then left after that. The next day I was with my cousin and I told her about the entitled mom and she thanked me. She said how annoyed she gets when random people show up. I can relate because I also have a property with no trespassing signs, yet people still walk down it. Honestly, it's probably the most ignored street sign in America. Sorry, honey, your mom thinks the rules don't apply to her and she blames others for her shortcomings. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.